Are you aware of your life before you came onto this earth plane? Are you aware of life outside of the physical reality? And are you hiding in the closet with that, kind of afraid to let anybody know that you might see images or hear voices or feel presences? Today's guest, Nichole Bigley, is the host of A Psychic's Story that I was featured on. And I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation and feel encouraged that you don't have to feel alone in your spiritual journey, that you have places to go to be understood. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably towards a different understanding of ourselves, an expanded view, a magical realization, walking on that other side of life. I like to call it right side up world because I've had that awakening where I was realizing as I transitioned, and it was very uncomfortable transitioning between these worlds, but I always used to think that life was normal the other way, and then I transitioned into this way, and then I realized I was actually living an upside down world, and that this is the right side up world, and that was the upside down world, and that was totally weird and wonky. And now I'm like in this track, and I'm like, oh, this is the way life is. Cool. And it's so much more clear and inspiring and magical, really. And so then how do you transition yourself to live between both worlds? So that's the topic for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. You know I love having these conversations. Oh my Lord. Like, I just love, this is my jam. This is my jam. I love having these kind of conversations. And I'm so grateful for all of you that come back every single week after week, to have these conversations with me. I am so grateful for that. I want to invite you into this conversation with my guest today, who is Nichole Bigley. Welcome, Nichole.
Thank you for having me.
So glad you're here. So Nichole interviewed me over on her podcast, A Psychic's Story, and I'll put the link in the show notes so you guys can check it out and have a listen over to Nichole's podcast and what happens over there in that world. I'm definitely grateful for all the podcast sharings and the conversations we get to have, like in multiples with all these wonderful hosts. Nichole is also a Reiki healer. She's been a Reiki healer for 22 years. And she also does another business that the world knows she does. A certain part of the world knows she does that business. And then a certain other part of the world knows she does this other business. And there's probably some limited crossover. So we thought, why don't we talk today about coming out of the psychic closet? And Nichole is gracious to share her story with us of her own coming out. So tell us a little bit about how this process is. 22 years to doing Reiki and healing work and talking about psychic things for, I don't know how long the podcast has been going on, but tell us about that journey. How does it unfold for you?
Yeah. So thank you for having me on the show and just being able to share my story. So I guess the best part is to kind of take a step back, is that for the better part of my entire life, like when I was born, I knew I had these abilities. My family was very supportive of it. And to me, it was something that, just like you said, not very many people questioned until I got a little bit older, until I got into college years and everything else. And people did things what society does, which is pick your career and figure out what it is that you want to do as far as making money and what that looks like. And so I had a very, I don't want to say existential crisis, but a crisis of moment where I was like, okay, well, if I can't do the psychic thing full time, what do I do for my full time job? And so I decided to go into communications. And so I liken it with, I communicate with alive people that are alive in PR and marketing during my full time job. And that's what I decided to go to school for. And then also on the side and in the psychic closet, I did the readings and everything else, but that was really more for friends and family. So I had a moment at some point in the last 2 years, right before I did the show, A Psychic Story, where my angels and guides and universe and just my soul was leading me to say, just share who you are. Like, why are you so scared to do this? What's the issue? And the issue is a lot. The issue is a lot of what we all are going through right now, which is how far do you actually share the authenticity and that truth of who you are? And is that going to be something that you're worried about losing faith in, losing friends, losing relationships, losing money, revenue, that sort of thing? Not because it's really something that we should be fearful of, but I think that's what society teaches us, right? So that's kind of the first part of what I'd like to share with your listeners.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, there's the coming out part in sense of like sharing this alternative view of the world with people or in a context where people might not be minded in that way. Like they may not be aware of those things themselves. And so then you're sharing this and it could be kind of weird for them, right? Like they don't know what you're talking about or they've never had that experience. And so how do you bring it up? And then again, there's so many closet psychics and so many closet people who are totally fascinated by this, but they're just afraid to come out and say that they are. And then the minute you start saying it, like people start telling you all kinds of their own personal stuff. Like, have you had that happen where you shared this a little bit or somebody found out you had this podcast and then they were like, oh, like actually secretly, do they tell you those kinds of things?
Well, yeah, not that as much. I guess the listeners, which I'll get to in a second, but I think the biggest thing that I was afraid of is that I built so here's the deal, guys. Like, I'm not trying to, my ego is not like, I'm the best person since sliced bread with PR, but my whole persona was showing the world or sharing with the world that I was able to take executives and give them a brand narrative about themselves. So we think about like, how do we show up every day? How do we share about our expertise? How do we share about our story in just a different relevant way, right? And so what started me thinking is that we take these aspects of ourselves, advertising, commercials, marketing, social media, all those things, and it's only a slice of it, right? It's not who we are inherently. It's just a very small piece. So that was, to me, a very eye-opening and a part of awakening for me, that do I want to be part of this world all the time? Meaning that we pay people like myself to share that, right? So there's that. But then, yes, absolutely what you're talking about. It's less about people being disjointed most recently, because I started to they know me. They're like, whoa, that also surprises me and doesn't surprise me. But the other part is that people are like, thank you for sharing your story because I thought I was crazy, or I thought I was different in the sense that how do I share and show up? And so that's the part, the show aspect of letting people know that they can, and with the work that you do as well, is that there's a different side of it, right? I was afraid, I guess, let me take a step back. I was afraid that people would say, oh gosh, you are a psychic and you're coming out. And then the other thing is when I did, they were like, not surprised. So I guess that's the other aspect of it.
It's kind of more honest, isn't it? I mean, I had a similar experience when I got divorced 10 years ago and I started this spiritual path. Pretty quickly, I started using a drum and having a journey and stuff like that. And then I got this like huge mystical moment with a hummingbird about a year in, and that came in my drum journey. And I was like, it was so potent for me. I was like, whoa, that's a message from spirit, because I didn't make that happen. That just showed up. And so after that, I started calling myself Carrie Hummingbird, like in journey circles. And like that felt edgy at first. And then pretty soon after about 6 months of that, I was like, well, screw it. I'm just going to change my name, because like, what's my name anyway? I'm just going to change it. I'm going to put it on social media. And I did it on Facebook first. And then I went to LinkedIn, which I had like, 2 decades of Silicon Valley people that I worked with in high tech as like a consultant, as a high paid consultant. And here I was changing my name from my name to Carrie Hummingbird, like on LinkedIn. People were like, "You've lost your mind now. Like, like you have lost your reason."
Yeah, well, you asked me right before this my LinkedIn link, and I mean, you can look for me, Nichole Bigley, but it's the PR aspect, it's the marketing aspect. It's like, here's my 22 years of comms. I do not, or I have not created a LinkedIn profile for what you're talking about, because I also feel like when people go there, they're going there to network for business or for marketing. And it's not that I'm hiding it, it's just more that it's almost confusing, I guess, to say, like, if right now I'm in a transition stage, but I can't imagine for you having, like, I'm right on that precipice of wanting to do it, what that was like. And also the messages that you probably got from people in doing so.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's kind of because it's kind of like they already saw it coming, because I
Mhm.
was I was going into the office after having been in Peru for a week or 2 weeks on a retreat where I did major, energy medicine with the shamans and all this prayer and everything, and I'm come back all lit up, and everyone's like, "Whoa, you're like neon," it's like Las Vegas walking down the aisle, because I have so much energy and I'm so high vibe, and they're all just like in the doldrums at their computer stations where they've been forever. So it was like that was shocking for people, but I think they saw it coming. They saw it coming. They were like, "You've always been kind of odd, like you've never really fit in."
Well, I think on an intuitive level, though, it makes sense, right? Because we all like somehow know where somebody's uniqueness lies or where their resonance and their truth lies. And so on one hand, whether it's your day-to-day work relationship or your relationship with your friends or your family or whatever it is, I don't want to say we're intentionally hiding secrets, but we are like not necessarily showing up because we're afraid in some cases how that's going to be judged or perceived or other things. At the end of the day, we all know it. We all know it, right? Because we all came from source. We all understand the vibe. So it doesn't surprise me that you got the neon. They got the neon. They got that alert, press release beforehand, but you just like confirmed it.
Yeah, and you mentioned LinkedIn. It's so interesting. LinkedIn, we have this idea, well, that's business. Well, this is my business.
Hmm.
This is my business. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as a leader of the Great Awakening, So that's what I'm doing. So maybe it won't be understood for many decades to come, but eventually people will realize, and people that are awake are already realizing, yeah, that's what she's doing. She's leading the second wave, So she's actually just being honest about what she's doing. But it sounds so far out, It sounds like,
I
whoa.
think I think that's the thing. It's because it's so far out from what we normally expect, is that the way LinkedIn or these other platforms, like, so to take a step back, Facebook was created for college kids to connect, right? Instagram was for your photos and like your image of yourself. And then LinkedIn was that professional aspect and how you're going to connect with other professionals to get a career long term and everything else. So when you think about it, it's silos, and it's again perceptions of how we want people to think of us in society. And the only reason I haven't changed it is because I haven't made that switch from part-time to full-time. And so that's the only reason. But it's not that I'm afraid of it, it's just more confusing to people to be like, okay, am I going to her for a reading, or am I going to her for like communications consulting with like the here and now, right? Very different. So I just need to think through, I guess, my own branding in a different way.
Yeah, it is a fascinating conversation, Nicole, that you bring up because a lot of people are, waking up to their gifts, in a spiritual sense, and then wanting to be in purpose with those gifts and wanting to step forward, but still in an environment that's not exactly open or aware of it, or, you know, so it's like, how do we make that bridge? Because a lot of what you're doing is useful also for people who are stepping into this kind of work, who are life coaches or who are a lot of my audience, people that are tuning into me are people who feel like we're leading, that we're leading this great awakening and we're in service. So a lot of the things that you're doing for executives and companies or for brands, you could easily also do for people that are in this consciousness field. And I think we need to start looking at ways to bridge those things, right?
Mhm.
So, what are some of the ways that you came out of the closet, let's say with close friends or family or clients that maybe didn't know that that this was part of your life? How did you bridge that?
Yeah, so great question. The way I did it was, so to take a step back, is I was 20 plus years into this. I was miserable, right? Not miserable because I wasn't making good money, I wasn't successful, that sort of thing. It's like spirit and universe gave me everything that that I thought I wanted, right? It's like you have the house, you have the car, you have the relationships, you have the career progression. And I was like, why am I just not happy? And so I started doing the internal work, and every night and every morning and every other time praying. And finally, after, it's almost like I love to say our guides and angels just kind of hit us over the head with it. And they gave me, the way I see it is when they give me a marketing plan or they give me a communications plan. And they're like, listen, girl, like I'm tired and I'm trying to go to sleep. And they said, this is what you need to do. You need to do a podcast. And then my first question was, well, this was over 2 years ago, so before podcasts were super popular. And I was like, but why? And they're like, because one, you need to step out of the psychic closet. I was like, okay, so there's that. But then they said all these other things, website and all of that. The reason it was important is because my friends and family knew. I was truthful to them about it. It was more about the executive world and everything else. And I was afraid to go out publicly because of all the things that we talked about before. More or less like, am I going to lose my job? They thought, are they going to want to put me in a loony bin? Are they going to call me into HR and say, like, what's going on? Like, are you having an existential crisis? All of that. And finally, it was just a ripping off the Band-Aid. And I felt trust in the universe enough to say, this is who I am. This is also something that you can't have part of me. I think that's the other thing that's super important for the audience to hear. And your audience knows this, is that there's no like half-seas in this world right now where we are. If we're leaders, if we're going through a great awakening, if we're going through these different steps, there's no half-assing it. You can't just say, I want to sort of do this like in my part-time, or I want to sort of do this in there. There's only so many hours in the day, but ultimately, what are you trying to achieve? And for me, it was, I only can share my story and my experience. And from that, hopefully others can learn. Okay, well, is that super important? Yes, it's important for each of us, because no matter how big or small you feel you are in the whole grand masterpiece of it, you have an extremely important role. So what I did was I got a website. I went out there, I did the podcast. I put my bio, my photo out there. I didn't change my name. I used my full name. People were saying, well, do you really actually want to use your first and last name and all of that? And just embraced it. And the best part of that is that from that standpoint, it was almost like a snowball effect of just everybody knowing, all right, not only is that who I am, but also that gave them confidence and learning and wanting to embrace who they are. And that was so surprising. I think it shouldn't be, but I would love your perspective on this. It was so surprising for me, but just having somebody or myself step into the truth and own it, that gave other people that confidence that I didn't realize that we needed so much.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference, actually. It's like, especially the more kind of rational you've been up until now, according to other people. Like if you've, like, I was pretty rational. Like I did high tech API programmer references and explained how all this like really complex technical stuff worked, right? So I'm like somebody who's got a good brain. So then you look at me and then I'm like, I make this transition. They're just like, whoa, that's where that you could be totally down with all these woo-woo conversations. Like you understand this stuff. That's so crazy. And but it also is kind of like, oh, whoa, like you're actually really grounded as a person and you're pretty practical and you're saying that this is something that's happening to you. So it's not just some crazy thing. So I think it's that. I think people see it and they go, well, all right, this is closer. This is like the 6 degrees of
Mhm.
separation, right? It's like, how many people do you know that you just inspired because you were confident enough to come out with it and be like, this is who I am. And when I changed my name on Facebook, at first people were like, oh my God, that's totally right. That's who you are completely.
Right.
Like, that's way more true than that other name. Like,
Well, for you, it was probably changing it because you had the realization and it made sense from your energy, right? For me, it was PR people that were saying, do you really want to do this? Maybe you should sort of dip your toe in and not use your real name.
but that would have been
Right.
hiding yourself. And I feel
Right.
like
And
that's not,
that's exactly what I said. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that would have been hiding you. And there's something that's so earnest and authentic about you. I mean, that's part of your personal brand, I feel, from you. Would you say that about yourself, that authenticity is part of actually your personal brand?
Not just personal brand, but it was also the part where my angels and guides were telling me is that you can't show up and do this line of work, be a light worker, be part of the great awakening, do all this other thing, do these other things if you're not walking the truth that you're talking. Like the saying is, do as I say, not as I would do as I whatever it is. Like that saying, like
Do as I say, not as I do.
right,
Yeah, but you
right.
have to do, you have to
You
demonstrate.
you have to do in this line of work as a light worker, as a healer, as whatever we want to define ourselves, which that's the other thing about my show is I really hate definitions. Like I hate defining things. There's all these misconceptions about what it is that we do. But the one thing at the heart of it is truly being who you think you are and embracing it, whatever that definition is. That's why it's a psychic story, is because I'm not psychic. I'm not psychic any differently than anybody else is on any given day. Right. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, but I'm also not defining myself as a PR person or a psychic person. That's the whole thing. It's breaking down these boundaries that we think that we are. It's about who we are inherently. And that can never be defined. That can only be felt.
Felt and perceived and experienced. I mean, because
Mhm.
psychic aspects of ourselves are experienced and
Mhm.
they're different for everybody, which drives people crazy when they start to open up this path.
Right.
It drove me crazy because I was like, whoa, how, what is clairvoyance and do I have it?
And
And
what spectrum, what aspect of the spectrum am I on, right? All of that.
yeah, and then how do I open that up because my pendulum won't even work the right way and I can't, like there's I mean, and I was, and what frustrated me from it was I'm an artist, right? So I'm always been this visual artist. I always wanted to be a professional artist for a long time. So that was what I was doing before I stumbled onto this path. Was I was trying to be a professional artist, and so when I started opening up my clairvoyant skills, and then I wasn't seeing, I was so frustrated because I was like, I'm an artist. I'm supposed to see visions. Like, where are the visions? And for me, that part wasn't coming through, but I was feeling like all this body stuff. Like I was having all this body awareness and like feeling and sensing in my body all this kind of amazing information, So talk a little bit about that process. Like how have you noticed yourself like that opening up for you? Because you're talking about psychic stuff. So like you've got to be able to
Mhm.
talk all the different sides around it. Tell us a little bit about what you've discovered.
Yeah, so the biggest thing, exactly what you're saying, is that most people think, okay, I'm not psychic or I am psychic. But then the biggest thing is that from my opinion and my perspective is that we all have an ability and we can call them gifts, we can call them whatever, and we're on different spectrums or we have access to it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it just depends on how dialed up or dialed down we are and how open we are to it. For me, the biggest thing was I had already kind of embraced it throughout my life, early growing up, all the way through my adulthood. The difference was coming out and acknowledging it and actually changing that brand, that personal brand, and communicating and owning who it was as a person and who I am. So that was the biggest thing, which is a little bit different than some other people that are probably listening, because a lot of other people start from I know there's something like what you're saying. I know that there's a purpose for me. I know that there's something else that I need to do. I know that I have this intuitive ability. Am I an empath? Am I a whatever? And it's like, stop. The first thing is just stop and take a breath and take a moment and just say, gosh, I'm really grateful to be here and to have this experience at this moment in time in this dimension, because it took a lot to get me here. It took a lot to get you here, every other single individual. And even if you think or don't think that you have this ability or gift, it absolutely is in your DNA and your resonance to own it. So that's the other thing. And when you sit in it and you're like, wow, that's powerful, that's a powerful resonance, right? Just to know that. So then leaning into what you're saying, the next thing that I had, and this is like almost like a aha moment, is when I'm leaning into it and my spirits and angels and guides were like, well, you should do readings. And I was like, first of all, you wanted me to do the podcast. Now you want me to do readings. And by the way, there's all these practitioners out there. I don't need to do readings on top of it. But the reason why they said that is because not because I'm giving anybody any information that they can't get from somebody else. It was more of a confirmation and ability for me to take it to the next level, to show people that what's the word that I'm trying to like, or the message I'm trying to download, is that it's more confirmation that we all need it at this moment in time, and that everybody has the different ability to apply it, if that makes any sense. And so I guess you think about psychics as like 1-800 psychic. I'm going to get a reading. Am I with this person? Am I not with this person? That sort of thing. And for me, it was ultimately at the end of the day, how do you then take it to the next level? And you talk about the Great Awakening, and it's really about waking people up and not about who they're supposed to be with or what career trajectory they're supposed to get.
Yeah, it's not about third dimensional material stuff. Like we all want to use it for that
Right.
because we're in the body and we're in the time and we like to be comfortable and we like to be satisfied and delighted and all that. So we like to use these psychic gifts to try to get something materially.
Yes.
But it's not really about that. It's about wake it up, to change the consciousness on the planet. That's and as a byproduct of that, then there's probably going to be some fun material experiences. But that's the byproduct. That's not the focus. But most of us flip it. Like the law of attraction, like attracts so many people to it because they think that it's going to help them get what they want.
Right. And that when you ask the question, I guess that's why I was struggling with it, is it's less like, I was like, what am I doing readings for? I have no desire to talk to people necessarily about who they're going to be with for the rest of their lives or their career trajectory or this, that, and the other. Although I realize that's important, and it is more what you're talking about and what others are getting at, which is how can I help you on your spiritual journey? And what does that path look like? And to me, that's why I was like, time out. Because I was like, that's a huge ask of me. But it's like, why are you in it to play small? Like you're here, or I'm here to help and to guide and to be part of something bigger, right? And not because I'm important, although I am important, but we're all connected. No, it sounds really.
We're all connected, right? And one of the, this is so interesting too, because some of us just might have more gifts in certain areas, just activated already, just by design, like maybe that's just because we had some life path and then something happened and the assemblage point got shifted and bam, like it opened up and now you're like online to help others. So it's just, or maybe you just came in and you just had it. So we all have different life plans and we all have the capability. And that's one of the messages I keep getting about the Great Awakening is that, yes, as I talk about in the Second Wave book, there are a lot of galactic visitors to the planet at this time incarnated as human to help other people that are primarily human to wake up these gifts. But everybody, regardless of whether they're a galactic visitor or not, everybody can awaken. Everybody has the ability. And so it doesn't matter if you're a starseed or if you're just straight old human, like it doesn't matter. Like whatever, you're in a body, you have consciousness, you can wake up. So that's the message they keep giving me. And it's kind of comforting to remember who you are. Like it's comforting for those of us who maybe weren't necessarily human all the way through along. Feel kind of comforted to know like, oh my gosh, I'm a Pleiadian. Oh, well, no wonder I'm not really at home here. Like, that makes sense. No wonder it's hard to be on Earth because it's so dense. Maybe that's why this is so difficult for me particularly. But that's just kind of like a need to know and kind of a nice thing to comfort myself, like to kind of know that thing now. But I always thought I was human. I never knew that information until recently. So we're all human, and I think the reason we come in to be all human like this is so because it doesn't actually matter where you're from.
Oh, yeah.
Or how many lives you've had. We all share this experience. We're all here at the cusp of humankind waking up to galactic consciousness. That's very fucking cool.
It's super fucking cool. And it's also one of those things where, from a consciousness standpoint, what's crazy to me is that if you think about it, you and I think we talked about this in the interview, but it's like you and I are having this conversation and no other two people in the galaxy, on Earth, whatever, are having this conversation. But then the people that are tuning in, same thing. And each individual person's perspective is going to be different and have that different point of view. And to me, that's super fascinating, no matter what our history is or where we came from, because that consciousness is truly cementing it and is embodying the energy of the conversation, the emotions, and everything else we're experiencing. And that to me is just really Cool.
And I think a lot of people don't realize, that we have a lot of unseen spectators for
Oh,
this
yeah.
earth experience, so there are those of us that are embodied and being actors in this great play, this great drama, and that's unfolding. But then there's a whole lot more that are unseen, that are spectators of this whole experience that we're having right now. And they gather around and they're like really fascinated by this. And then maybe they decide to jump on into a body and like be part of it too. So, it's we're so connected. It's like I hear so many people talk about, oh, I'm so lonely, or I don't like being alone or this or that. And it's like, you're never alone. Like,
Hmm.
it's actually impossible to be alone. Like, I have erected shields and blackout curtains around, at periodical time just to try to create a sense of like separation and aloneness from the allness that is watching. And it's like, periodically some success at like, oh, look at me, I'm all alone, nobody can get me. But it doesn't last very long. It takes way too much energy to maintain that.
But you bring up something that's important. That's because a lot of people are so, not to get super deep, but to get deep is that it's indoctrinated in the matrix, right? Our perception is exactly we're physically conceived versus what we energetically have access to, right?
Exactly. And I think it's like when you're in the dense part of your journey that's all mental
Hmm.
and physical, you're not really aware of the subtle bodies, right? The subtle messages, especially if you have a rock concert blaring inside your head. You know, you can't hear the messages that are coming through. But like the more quiet it gets, the more quiet, the more quiet, the more quiet, the more still it gets, you can hear all these messages. And then it's like this flow that happens. And I'm often in the flow. Like right now, I'm totally in the flow. Like I'm just in that flow and I channel and whatever else is just like, I just allow it all to happen. And in that flow, it feels great because the energy is just flowing through, and I don't need to worry about what's coming out my mouth because I'm just here with you, And that's fun that way because then I surprise myself.
Right. And also, but not everybody can necessarily connect from that standpoint. So I think like for your listeners and depending on what they're looking at and for me the way like how we got to the conversation and why I'm on your show is that even someone, and I can raise my hand here, even someone that was on a spiritual path, on a spiritual journey, knew I wanted to have some sort of impact, not just on my own personal life, but on others. It took a lot of work or a lot of, I want to say work as much as insight and awareness to know and to feel those emotions and say, okay, where are they coming from? Where are those thoughts coming from? They're not of me, they're external of me. And then how do I shift and change it? And the biggest thing, and then most people are like, well, how do you do that? Like, it sounds so hard. It's really not hard, right? You're nodding in agreement. It's like acknowledging, I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? I'm not happy because I'm not living in my authentic truth. What is my authentic truth? Oh, and 9 times out of 10, it's something that you're fearful in air quotes of because you're like, I don't want to leave that relationship. I don't want to leave that job. I don't want to rebrand myself or come out of like who I am authentically because I'm afraid of the unknown. And ultimately, my biggest message that I always get, and people are like, it's a fortune cookie, but it's true, is that I'm embracing this and living this because if I just like lean into who I am, then at the end of the day, like, how do I know that the universe doesn't have anything great, more grand and profound and designed for me than I do? I don't. So if I trust in that and know in that, then and lean into it, then the fear dissipates.
Yeah, and the more examples you get of that being true, the more the fear dissipates too. But you can only know that by leaning in
Mm-hmm.
to follow your heart, basically. That statement sounds so trite, but
It's
like
true.
in the quiet space of my heart, when I get down into my heart and I pop the question down and I listen for the answer to just kind of bubble up from within me, usually whatever that answer is the correct path.
Mm-hmm.
And then I might be in conflict with myself about it because my brain might be arguing about that, like, well, that's going to require too much work, or I don't know if I have money for that, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time for that, or like all the excuses. But the heart is calling forth. And so I always tell people, like, take the initiation, like, your heart's calling you forth. Get on the diving board, look down. Yep, it's a high diving board. Jump off. Like, just jump because there's something there at the bottom for you that you're going to find. You might even like find yourself lifted by a floaty cloud. You have no idea what's going to happen. So, but if you don't take the risk to try that out, take the adventure, you're never going to find that. You're not going to discover your intuitive power, right? Because intuition requires us to listen to it.
Yes.
And that's how it gets stronger, is that you listen to the intuition. It tells you go down to the coffee shop today. You're like, well, I don't want to go to the coffee shop. You get your ass in the car, you go to the coffee shop.
Because you never know why.
Because you don't know why. And then all of a sudden your childhood friend walks in the door. What?
Mm-hmm. Or you never know like what ripple effect that has by that simple decision, right? That simple decision. It could have been because you got in the car, because you went to the coffee shop, because you tried a different cup of coffee, because you ran into somebody else, you smiled at somebody that day that wasn't expecting it, that really needed it, that you ran into your childhood friend. It's all designed, which is crazy and amazing at the same time, right? But you don't have to understand. It's just trust in it.
And that's what this whole psychic thing is about, I believe, I feel, is to get us into that synchrony flow where we're in the dream state and we're just flowing along with life and following its cues to reveal the next present, the next moment, the next aha, the next connection. And then it's like, it's the opposite of like, if you were playing a video game and in your mind, you're like, oh, I remember where everything is. I'm going to go find it all. That's one way. That's like the third party, like doing it. And that's our will. Our will can do that. But this is more like the game itself is saying, hey, Carrie, get in your car. Hey, Carrie, start the engine. Hey, Carrie, drive down to the coffee shop. Fuck. Hey, Carrie, sit at this table. Hey, Carrie, watch. Listen. And I'm sitting there like, why am I here? Part of me is arguing. What the heck am I doing sitting here? This is a waste of my day. Why am I sitting here? And then all of a sudden that person walks in. Oh my God, this is so crazy. I was brought here because of you. And now we have this conversation. And in that conversation, some key problem that I was facing is resolved.
Right, exactly. And I think the way that you're describing it too is because society tells us that we don't have these abilities, or it should be poo-pooed, or all these other things, right? I liken it to the way I breathe, the way I see, the way I feel. We've questioned it for so long growing up that then the moment we want to turn it on and trust that intuition or trust that psychic aspect, it adds in another complication of layer of it's who we are. Like, I think the biggest moments of challenge I've had in my life is when my psychic ability is turned off because I'm so close to things. And that's when I've spiraled, which is different from a lot of people. But for me, it's like when it's not happening, I'm like, it's like losing my eyesight. I'm like, what's going on? So I think that for people that can like just open the door, crack it open a little bit and say, all right, I'm open to this. All those things you're saying, when you do it just once or twice, it doesn't even have to be multiple times, just like a few times and a handful of your day, it makes such a difference in your life and in your spiritual journey and your practice.
Yeah, and everyone's pathway is different because you were talking about talking to your angels and your guides and stuff like that. So some people, that's the path. For me, I open the four directions. I talk to the south, the west, the north, and the east. I talk to the mountains. I invite it all in every single day, and I said, please guide me. So whatever your method, that's just the other thing about the psychic conversation. It's not evil, okay? Like,
thank you for saying that. It's not.
It's your consciousness. Like, how is that evil? It's the way you communicate with the great creator that's organizing this whole drama play anyway and is guiding you along through it. So it really can't be evil. You're listen. All you're doing is listening. Listening has never been evil to yourself.
You're listening to yourself.
To yourself.
Yeah.
And to the creator that's, the matrix creator that's doing all this creation and connection and synchrony between you and me and everybody else, everyone who's listening to this. It cannot be evil. So whatever way it shows up for you is the perfect way. Like, that's why I love the message from White Eagle in the Second Wave book about, Dude, it's your unique thumbprint. That's why you have one of those. Did you ever wonder why you have a unique thumbprint? I think it's to remind us that, hey, you're not like anybody else. So your life's not going to look like anybody else's.
Well, exactly. Your what is it? Your DNA, there's no DNA that's just like your thumbprint that's like anybody else's at all, ever, and will never, ever be. Like cloning, you can talk about that for a whole nother topic, but it still will never be you. Your DNA, your unique resonance, your thumbprint, anything else, because of all the stuff that you just mentioned. You're here to make an imprint, literally your fingerprint on life.
You're here to explore all the, like if that was Pac-Man, you're here to like Pac-Man your way through your entire thumbprint and find out get all the little nuggets and chew them all up in your gold and everything inside there.
That's a lot of paths in there right now that I'm looking at.
I know, you got two of them. So, like it's a lot to explore. And if you don't explore it, nobody else will.
Exactly. Exactly.
So stop being afraid of yourself, everybody. Like quit that.
But you know what? I do want to ask you the question. Why do you think people are afraid of ourselves? Like, or myself? Is it because we're afraid of our potential?
I think it's because of the control matrix.
Into it? Okay.
I think it's because that was an easy way to control people, was to disempower them by cutting themselves off from themselves. Like, because if people really think they're all they are is a body and a mind and some hands to like, plow a field, then they're going to be very easily controlled because because if you're not tapped into your higher self and you're not plugged into your body and the wisdom of the planet, then you don't have access to the next best step for you. But the moment you are plugged back in, the moment you're plugged into your intuition, however it works for you, the moment you're connected into the planet, you're able to guide your way. And so whatever someone's trying to do to control you doesn't work anymore, because you're going to be navigated a way out of that and around it and someplace else that's more productive for you. So I think it was a system of control to make people afraid of themselves, so that they would just buckle down and do their work and pay their tithe at church and all this kind of stuff. And we're breaking that system now. We're like, no, we're not down with that anymore, because nobody's better than anybody else and nobody should be controlling anybody else.
But I also think it's complacency, honestly. Like, I think it's that. And then the fact that if you think like, so if I look back the last 20 years of my life, if my higher self had said, okay, Nichole, this is what you were meant to do, I think I would have been like, you're crazy. And no, I don't want that, quite frankly. Only maybe it's because of what you said, the matrix and everything else, but also I think it's because I guess tuning into it, I would have felt at that time I was not worthy and that I wasn't capable of doing it. Right now that I'm here, it's less that I don't feel worthy and not capable of doing it. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work. I'd rather just sit in Netflix and chill.
Yeah. See, what I think you're speaking to is the layers of egoic consciousness, right? So at some point, what I'm saying is true. We were all conditioned in a certain way.
Right.
But then also what happened is we got conditioned in that way and we got complacent. And we got used to people telling us how to do things and like where to sit and how long and when can you get up and what should I eat and where, all of this. Here's the television, sit down, watch it. Like, so yeah, we got programmed to kind of be complacent. But I'll tell you, when you take the adventure as you have towards unlocking this direct relationship, like I remember years ago, I said, I want to interface directly with the creator. Like that would be cool. And so I started this journey of interfacing directly with my creator. And it's like, wow, like this is cool. Not to say it's not challenging. It is, because there's no roadmap except the one inside me and my conversations with creator. I can't listen to anybody else because they don't have my answers. I sure want somebody else to give me the answers, because that's why you go to psychics, right? To get the answers. But eventually, like, and we can help each other. Like we often we can hear for each other better than we can hear for ourselves. But ultimately, it's the adventure you go on with your own spirit and with your own creator. Like that's the awesome journey. Like that's the intimate connection. That's the beauty way. That's the mystery school is life, and it's waiting for every single person who's listening to this.
It's why we came here.
Yeah, we came here to have the adventure
and have fun and not be scared of ourselves, like you said.
Yeah. And then, okay, so I want to say one more mind blowing thing that came up to me like a few weeks ago in ceremony. I was like, all of a sudden it occurred to me, if I am the whole ocean in a drop, and so is everybody else, then that means we're one being, which we kind of know there's all that is. Then why would I ever be afraid to talk to myself?
I know. Isn't that
Like you're
crazy?
myself and I'm myself and the tree is myself and everybody is myself. Why would I be afraid to talk to myself? Because we're all the same self.
And
It doesn't
then
make any sense.
the judgment, it's like not only am I judging myself, like in the day to day, I'm judging others, and we're all connected and we're all the one source.
Then we're
And
all
then I'm
judging
like,
ourselves.
it's just a vicious cycle.
It is.
I
It's
know.
like when you actually expand your spiritual mind to start thinking about the fact that we are all interconnected and we're actually just one being that's divided itself into all these little aspects to interact with itself. It's like, then I'm talking to myself by talking to Nichole right here. And then myself in the audience is listening to myself, Carrie, and myself, Nichole, talk about ourselves. But we're all having the same conversation. So, like this,
Different experiences.
I know. And so the fact that like this war and all this stuff that goes on the planet, it's like, how does that even happen? Because I think it's just because people don't realize that we're all the same self. Like we would never do that to ourselves if we knew that we were all the same self.
One of the better things that I heard somebody say, they were laughing about this. It's another awakened soul. Is like on Instagram, and I had a chuckle. Is that he was saying, he's like, I'm watching this guy walk his dog and get irritated about his dog, like tying himself around this walk, like, and the guy's going, and he's like, and I had a chuckle because it's God or God source or whatever, universal spark. And not only is that myself watching God get annoyed by this situation, but the dog, and then the dog and he's like, and I just had to laugh at that. And that put it into such a perspective of, everything around us, right? Like you said, the connectedness and all of that. And then also just it reminds me of stepping back from a loving place and just watching it unfold from a greater sense of compassion.
A much greater sense, and plus humor, I think that's where delight comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Is because I've been working on moving out of seriousness and getting into delight. And I think this is a true path, is because once you realize, like really realize it, let it sink in, like anything that's irritating me is also me.
You're irritating yourself.
Yeah. I'm irritated, just irritated. So why would I choose to irritate myself? I don't choose to do that. So I'm like, okay, well, this part of myself is annoyed, but this part of myself is delighted. And so I'm just going to allow everyone to be exactly where they are and just know that currently I'm having some measure of this part of aspect of me, of the collective, is having this experience of experiencing delight. And cool, I'm glad to be that part of me right now.
And what's so fascinating is because I've asked Spirit, I'm like, but why? Why do I have to have this experience of annoyance or whatever else? And just like you're saying, it's if you didn't have that mirror and have those other experiences, and how would you know the joy, the delight, all those other things that are allowing you to embrace it in its entirety?
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like these voices that you hear are the same voices I hear. It's all the same voices, right? It's the same guidance that comes through from whatever teacher, helper, spirits or ancestors or whatever have come before, right? That are just like guiding us through our current experience of this phenomenon, that, some fractal little piece of consciousness that's called Carrie Hummingbird is getting to experience this now, right? But it's all the same consciousness. It's like you're some piece of that fractal and I'm some piece of that fractal, and we're coming back together now. We're merging. And I think that's why we're able to hear the ancestors now, and we're able to really, the veil is thin, because we're starting to realize, oh, that is me too. Like, because of past lives and things like that, like, how do you even know that that's not you in the other life?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the ancestors are also us.
Oh, yeah. What blows my mind, and which is probably a whole nother conversation, is when I think about like what we had talked about, there's really no timeline.
Yeah. It's all happening now.
Right. And like, so when I think about all the quote unquote mistakes I made earlier on in my life, or even past lifetimes or anything else, like this is the other thing that I got downloaded to me, which like I was like, okay, guys, I need a whole month to discern this, is when they were like, you can heal not just yourself now, but all those past lifetimes. And by the way, you're experiencing them right now. So why don't you change it? Like that whole saying where they're like, the past is the past, you can't change it. They're like, oh, hell no. You can absolutely change the past because the past is here now. And I was like, whoa. So when I think about that, I'm like, that's amazing. Like that we all, and the great awakening part of it is what you were getting to earlier, is that it's all of us starting to realize that and almost like center ourselves and embrace that emotion and that vibration and the healing energy that's coming in, and know with that knowingness that we have the power and the ability to change and not be so linear and focused on just the present, but that it's all around us.
It certainly is. And yeah, that's what being, that's what this whole path that I've been on is all about is recapitulating the past and deciding that's how you make new timelines. I actually had this I'll just share this story and then we'll wrap up because this is so pertinent. Years ago I was studying the Four Winds Light Body School, energy medicine, and I was aware that through using these practices I was able to hop timelines. And there was this one particular practice, and I can't share it because it's secret, it's part of their curriculum. But there was this one practice where we brought in universal energy and then did it on like a medicine wheel and like basically shifted everything around. Like whatever the thing was going on, we just like transformed the whole energy of that pattern, like everything, like in a holistic way that was going on in my life at the time. And I did this practice several times in a row. And I was aware that every single time I did that practice, I was like jumping, hopping, skipping to a different timeline. And so I was like in this effort to get myself into the timeline with the best possible destiny and outcome. And then once I arrived here, I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm not worried about the other timelines. I'm like, whatever, I'm in the one I wanted to be in. So I'm fine now. And I actually remember waking up, like coming back and waking up into this timeline. Like there was this moment of like I'd been in a different timeline and it didn't turn out very well. And so I wanted to like do that over. And so I came back in here to like, okay, I'm going to get on the right timeline now. And I'm using these tools to get on the timeline I want to be on, which is the successful timeline. So that's why I also don't worry too much because I know it looks dire out there, but I also know that I'm on the successful timeline because I intended to be here on this one and I worked to get here. So I'm not too worried about all that because I know it works out in the end. But we do have to put effort in. So don't give up, anybody. Like, please, pedal to the metal. Like, let's do this transformation stuff. But this is the good timeline. So,
And with that,
I mean, what else
timeline.
We have to have more conversations, Nichole. Like, this cannot be it because it's just too good.
I know. Well, I love it. Thank you so much again for having me. And hopefully I answered your questions. I know we went around a little bit, but it's like hard not to when you're talking about this kind of stuff, because again, it's present, but we're not in the present. We're in the here and now and all in between, right?
Exactly. It's all over the place. Time is like this.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then like multidimensional.
Yes, so, exactly.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I'll be getting this interview out there real shortly. And is there anything that you would like to share with the audience? I mean, I know that you have your podcast. I'm definitely going to link over to a psychic story and of course to my episode. So you guys can check that out too. But anything else you want people to know about you and your services? They might be interested in you for PR, for all kinds of things. So how do people reach you?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is a psychic story. So psychicstory.com. And you can also find the podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. That's the biggest thing I'm feeling led to really share right now, is because there's a grander plan. There's more. There's more, guys.
There's more.
There's so much more. So you absolutely can book a session with me. Although honestly, I feel like booking with Carrie or other practitioners who I've interviewed because I felt led, they've been booked by my angels and guides. So you know that they've been vetted. And yeah, there's just more coming in the next several months. But if everybody can stay tuned, and if you sign up for my newsletter, you will find out more there. I don't know when that will be, when that news will drop, but they'll tell me.
Oh, I love mysteries. Awesome. So Okay, that'll go in the show notes too, and I encourage you guys to all check that out. Please also consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode out wherever you found it. YouTube, if you're not on YouTube yet, go find me over there. This is how we get it out there because those search engines are technology based and they require engagement and interaction in order to promote episodes. So we're still in that mode. So please do that for us. And also join Soul Nectar Tribe because there's more goodies in Soul Nectar Tribe right around the corner. And maybe even something from Nichole. We'll see.
Maybe. We'll see.
So come join Soul Nectar Tribe, kerrihummingbird.com, KERRI hummingbird.com/membership. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a great week, everybody. And here's some kisses. Give kisses to everybody. We're going to do it now. We love you. Trust your intuition. See you next time. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake, Show. Take a sip from the drip of the nectar, from the source of who you are.